What's up, you guys? I am back with another video today. It is nighttime, so I don't have my camera on, 'cause you probably won't see me. So, you guys, I'm gonna be uploading some videos tomorrow with my cam on. Probably gonna upload like 4 or 5 videos, like I usually do. But yeah, this video is two chilling wedding horror stories. No sleep. He literally just uploaded this, not too long ago, like maybe 5 minutes ago, actually. So you guys, the time is 12:38 a.m. here. Like it's morning, but no, it's not really morning. It's nighttime, I guess you could say. But yeah, you guys, let's get into. I think this is by unit something. I don't know. If I tilt the screen, it's gonna fuck up. So if you guys want, just type in that if you want to watch the original video. So yeah, let's get into it, you guys. Oh, there's his YouTube. Yes, unit number 522. Let's see.
I've recently come into possession of a strange object, and I was wondering if any of you could help me figure out what to do with it. A bit of background. I do freelance wedding photography as a side gig for my main job. Last week I got an offer out of the blue from a friend of a friend. Their first choice had to cancel at the last minute due to health reasons. I was only happy to make a bit of extra cash, so I threw my equipment in the back of my car and raced off to the hotel where the ceremony was taking place. It was a small place, and the wedding guests had it more or less booked. I was running slightly late due to the last-minute nature of the job, and was pretty anxious to get to the proper suite. The only problem was, I couldn't find it. I followed the directions the receptionist told me, and found myself wandering around a confusing maze of identical corridors. It was absolutely silent in there. I figured everyone was at the ceremony waiting for me to show up, and there were no windows. I guess it's because everyone has seen The Shining, but those long hallways lined with doors always seem to spook people out. They definitely had that effect on me. Anyways, I couldn't find the suite. I swear I ended up going in circles somehow, seeing room numbers that I had already passed. I tried retracing my steps back to the lobby, and I couldn't find that either. Several times I caught a glimpse of someone walking ahead of me, just turning a corner, but they would never answer when I called out, and no matter how fast I ran after them, I couldn't seem to catch up with them. The thought crossed my mind that this was all some kind of huge joke, but who would possibly put that much effort into a prank? Eventually I rounded a corner, sweating and seriously starting to panic. I heard music, and I followed the sound to the ceremony. There was lines of chairs with well-dressed people sitting on them. The walls of the room had been completely draped in white curtains, which was a bit more dramatic than most hotels usually go in for. There was a very faint, soft music emerging from what I guessed were speakers somewhere in the room. The room was extremely dim, as it was only lit by candles, so it took me a moment to locate the groom standing at the head of the room with the best man. I hurried over to him and started giving my apologies for being late, but he just smiled and waved at me. That's when I noticed the best man wasn't the friend who had given me the job, but it was someone that I had never seen before. Now keep in mind there was only one wedding happening at this hotel. Like I said, it was small. I don't know of many hotels that could support 2 weddings happening at the same time. "Do you know where my friend is?" I asked as politely as I could. The groom smiled again and said something. Here's the first really weird part of all of this. Everyone in that room spoke very quietly. I literally couldn't make out a word anyone was saying. It sounded like they were whispering. If I wasn't standing right in front of someone, it was like their mouths were moving, but no sound was coming out. At the time, I chalked it up to some freak problem with my hearing, and tried to do my job as best I could. So I set up all my stuff. The minister then arrived. It was a guy in this long black robe thing. It looked a bit gloomy for a wedding. I started doing my thing as the ceremony kicked into gear. The minister flapping his lips wordlessly, and that faint music coming from somewhere. The faces of the guests were only barely visible in the dim light, which is why it took me so long to notice some of the weird stuff in that room. I first saw the shroud as the bride was coming down the aisle. I had a glance at it earlier as I was coming into the room, and I mistook it for a discarded coat or something. But now I saw that one of the seats was occupied by a white cloth draped over what was clearly a figure of a person. It wasn't moving. I stared at it for a bit, kind of startled, because I swear it looked like a dead body propped up in a chair. No one paid any attention to it, or even seemed to notice that it was there, but it kept drawing my eye. Then I started to notice other strange things, like a cage. At the back of the room was this enormous cage with something in it. I don't know what it was. Whatever it was, it had huge eyes, and I could see them flashing in the candlelight. There was some man standing over in the corner. He was dressed in a very stiff black suit, and he had very pale skin, pale enough that I could see him even in the dim light. His face had that kind of papery look. I kept waiting for him to sit down, but he just stood in his corner and stared at the guests. It was at this time the ceremony had reached the point to where the bride and the groom were standing in front of the minister. I couldn't hear what was being said, so I glanced through my photos quickly, and that's when the situation got even stranger. In the photos, the room was empty. There was no people in any of them, just rows of empty chairs. I started flicking through the pictures in disbelief, completely baffled. I've had cameras break and go on the fritz, but erasing guests from photos is impossible. Then I noticed the photos weren't completely empty. The pale man in the dark suit was still there, standing in his corner, staring out over empty chairs. I glanced up at him, and all of a sudden, he was staring right at me. Our eyes met, and that's when I noticed that there was nothing but two dark spots in his pale face. He grinned at me slowly. This sounds completely irrational, but it was like looking at him in the photo somehow drew his attention to me. And I very much knew that I did not want him paying attention to me. I knew it instinctively, in the back of my mind. The ceremony wrapped. I wasn't paying much attention to it by this point. The hotel staff started moving chairs off to the side. At least, I assumed it was the hotel staff. All I could see was dark forms moving stuff around, but it was so dim in there that it was hard to tell. By the time I thought to see what had been done with the shroud from earlier, that section of seats had already been moved, and I couldn't see it anywhere. Once the chairs were out of the way, the dancing started. That same quiet music playing while the guests waltzed slowly. I continued snapping photos, too unnerved to check how they were coming out. I kept seeing the pale man out of the corner of my eye, walking around among the dancers. If I looked to my side or over my shoulder, he would be standing there, about halfway across the room, looking at me and grinning. So I began to keep my gaze firmly ahead of me so I wouldn't have to see him. If you're thinking that this is starting to seem seriously out there, well, you're not alone. When I look back on the wedding now, the entire thing has this floaty, dreamlike quality to it. Like maybe it was just a nightmare, but I know it wasn't. I don't know why I didn't ask the bride or the groom what the hell was going on, or the pale man what his problem was. I just had this really strong feeling that I had to keep taking the photos, or else something bad was going to happen. That went on for a while. I'm not sure how long. It could have been hours, but I kept taking the photos and ignoring the pale man, always looking ahead of me, never to the sides or behind. I could still hear the music faintly playing behind it all, just at the edge of my hearing. At some point, I realized that things were starting to wind down. I came out of my daze a bit. I approached the bride and groom apologetically, not sure how to explain the photos, but neither of them seemed to mind the empty chairs. In fact, they seemed happy with it. The groom produced a small lavender box from the pocket of his suit and pushed it into my hands. I stumbled out of the room and back into the empty corridors. not entirely sure where I was going. I was still dazed. Halfway down the corridor, something tugged at the back of my mind, and I turned around to see the pale man standing at the end of the hallway, grinning at me wider than ever. As soon as he realized that I was looking at him, he started to walk swiftly towards me, moving impossibly fast. In less than 2 seconds, he had covered half of the distance between us. I'm not entirely sure why, but I reflexively held the groom's box out. I thought it was going to ward him off, or I was going to use it as some kind of weapon. He stopped dead in his tracks and gave me a wide grin, showing me 2 rows of immaculately straight white teeth. He started to slowly walk backward down the hallway, staring at me the entire time. The last I saw of him was one dark eye peeping at me around the corner, until he vanished completely from sight. I stumbled down the rest of the hallway and turned a corner, and then all of a sudden there were people milling around everywhere, and the noisy buzz of conversation. It hit me like a solid brick wall, and I actually stumbled backwards, almost falling flat on my back. My friend, the one who had offered me the job, came sprinting through the crowd, looking extremely agitated. He demanded to know where I had been, and why I hadn't been at the wedding. I tried to explain to him that I was, only there was something wrong with the photos. When I tried to show him all the pictures, they were just black, or at least that's what I thought at first. It was only later when I got home and took a closer look that I saw a small sliver of light coming from a door and realized that I had an SD card full of photos of a pitch black empty room. For a few weeks, I wondered if I was losing my mind. Then I found the small purple box the groom had given me, and I opened it. Resting on a bed of red silk was a pearly white spinal vertebra. I still have it on my nightstand, in its little box. I was going to throw it away, but then I thought of the pale man with the dark eyes, and the way the box had seemed to ward him off in that hallway, and I decided that maybe I should hold on to it after all. What do you guys think?
It was that whole sense of adventure and going places.
That was weird, you guys.
Bike flights out of that need.
But you guys, I'm gonna finish this video tomorrow. I'm tired. I'm not scared or nothing. I'm just really tired, you guys. I'm gonna go ahead and like the video. See, it just came out. Just want to go sub to him. I'm surprised he only has 150,000. Well, almost 150,000. But it's crazy that he doesn't have that much subs. So you guys need to go sub to this dude. He's a really cool guy. But yeah, you guys, peace. Hope you guys enjoyed. So subscribe and like the video. Thank you.